Now, with the Republican tax plan coming up for a vote very, very soon, time is running out to put a stop to a plan that will literally hand trillions of dollars over to the richest Americans. So, and now you might think, okay, look, I know it's going to give a lot of tax cuts to the rich, but it's also going to give us a tax cut. And by the way, Republicans keep telling me it's going to create jobs, right? They keep saying, oh, no, don't worry. These tax cuts, it's going to spur innovation and growth, and they're going to create jobs, and it's going to be great for everybody. It's going to literally trickle down in your head. Well, not so much. I've got some bad news for you guys. According to Bloomberg News, major companies, including Cisco, Pfizer, and Coca-Cola, said that even if they get the tax cuts, well, if they do get the tax cuts, most of it is going to go right back into their pockets. Now, instead of hiring more workers or raising their pay, Bloomberg writes, many companies say that they will first increase dividends or buy back their own shares. So they'll be doing basically what they call stock buybacks. Now, Robert Bradway, chief executive of Amgen Inc., said in an October 25th earnings call that the company had been, quote, actively returning capital in the form of growing dividend and buyback, and I'd expect us to continue that. This is it. This happened, of course, while they were continuing to do the discussion on the tax cuts. Now, executives including Coca-Cola CEO James Quincy, Pfizer Chief Financial Officer Frank D'Amelio, and Cisco CFO Kelly Kramer have also made similar statements. Quote, we'll be able to get much more aggressive on the share buyback after a tax cut, according to Kramer, who said in a November 16th interview. So, make no mistake, these companies, these corporations are telling you that if you give us tax cuts, we're not going to create jobs. No, are you kidding? No, we're going to take that money and we're going to put it in our pocket. We're going to buy back our own stock, which has the effect of raising share prices and actually also removing some shares from the market, which benefits shareholders, which the majority of happen to be executives in the company. I mean, that's part of executive compensation. So instead of giving the CEO a gigantic pay raise, which they do, obviously, as well, they will give, in order to skip some taxes, they'll give stocks as an incentive, right? Now, of course, the higher that stock value goes, well, the more it's worth, the more money these people end up getting. Look, that's why you see right now the stock market going up exponentially. They're looking at these corporations are looking at this, Wall Street's looking at this, and they're salivating, man. They're like, give me those tax cuts. You know why? We're going to use all that money to inflate our stock price, and we're going to get even richer. That's why, all while, of course, you will end up paying more money in taxes after a decade. Yes, there are temporary tax cuts, but again, those are temporary. But the tax cuts for the rich, they never go away. They will be permanent, going from 35% to 20%. Do you know how much they pay now? They pay 14% in effective taxes. So that is their effective rate. And again, that's what most of these corporations end up paying. That's actually far less. Now, they say, of course, well, look, there's going to be, we're going to close the loopholes. And so they're actually going to end up paying more in taxes. You don't think they're going to carve in new loopholes? That's exactly what they do. So every time they say, no, we're going to close loopholes. We're going to broaden the base. Corporations will actually end up paying more. Donald Trump's going to end up paying more. That's not what happens. They're always ready to carve up a new loophole so they can continue to pay even less in taxes while you end up paying more. That's what this whole thing is about. This is redistribution of wealth to the top. Now, they call that socialism, right? But this is socialism for the rich. That's what this is. Now, the Tax Policy Center has said that people making under $75,000 a year will end up seeing their taxes go up within the next decade. While the super wealthy, of course, are going to see a gigantic tax cut, and when it blows up the deficit, which it will, there are certain triggers that will come into play that will end up cutting social services. In fact, there's already a stipulation where it's going to end up doing an immediate 25% cut in Medicare. And there are other programs also. There's going to be students that are going to be just absolutely fucking destroyed. You're going to have people who rely on student loans. You're also going to have grad students that are going to be hit a lot. So, man, this is a boondoggle. Okay, this is going to crush the middle class. This is going to crush the working poor. All in an effort to give more and more money to the rich and gigantic multinational corporations. This is not what people want. Okay. Now, John Shin, this is a foreign exchange strategist at Bank of America Merrill Lynch, told Bloomberg that companies are sitting on a large amount of cash. They're not actually really financially constrained. See, one of the reasons that they want to push this tax cut so hard is that they're claiming, well, these corporations, I mean, they're struggling, man, under the boot of the government. Under these taxes and regulations, these companies can't create jobs. That's why they need this corporate tax cut. Well, right there, here's a bank saying, actually, no, we're not constrained at all. We've done a study of all these different corporations and found that they're just sitting on mountains of cash. They're not constrained whatsoever, but they're not actually doing anything. So the question is, why are we going to give them gigantic tax cuts? Well, again, it's redistribution of wealth to the rich. These corporations want more, so they bribe members of Congress to give them these enormous tax cuts at your expense. Not to create jobs, but just to fill their own pockets. And here are the companies flat out admitting that, yes, we are not planning to create jobs. All we're going to do is we're going to do stock buybacks. And that's it. Now back to Shin. He conducted a survey of more than 300 companies, which asked their plans for a tax overhaul. And he said that, quote, after talking to these shareholders or these companies, they said, look, the companies are just working for their shareholders. They're not working for you. Now, there's another part of this bill, other than the gigantic corporate tax cuts, which is disastrous. This would be very devastating for the federal budget. And this is the tax holiday. Now, companies right now hold about $2 trillion in cash overseas. They want to bring that back. They want to repatriate the funds. Well, we did this before back in 2004. Over 90% of the money that was brought back here ended up doing, again, stock buybacks and executive compensation. So what was the benefit for that? The government got stiffed on money that it was rightly owed by these companies. Now, Shin said that corporations this time around are also most likely to pay down debts and repurchase shares with the proceeds of this new tax holiday, which would be mandatory. Only 35% of companies total said that they might use the money for capital expenditures. So, look, stock buybacks, as I said, it's one of those financial tricks to go and increase executive pay. They don't need to create jobs, and so they won't. There's no incentive for them to create jobs. They create jobs when there is more demand. Well, how do you get more demand? You actually put money into the pockets of the working class and the middle class. But unfortunately, the middle class and the working class have been squeezed. The middle class has shrank, and wages continue to be stagnant after 30, 40 years of basically trickle-down economics, Reaganomics. So, look, man, we have to come to the realization as a country that we cannot continue to cut taxes for the rich. Tax cuts do not create jobs. They do not create growth. There are some situations where a tax cut might actually do a little bit of growth, right? We are not in that situation. In fact, Janet Yellen was talking about that earlier. She's like, look, we have full employment and we're almost at 3% growth. We don't need another tax cut on the rich. All this is a big sloppy wet kiss to Wall Street. That's what this is about. So Republicans, what they're trying to do with this tax cut is they are selling you a lie. Okay? This is for the benefit of the corporations and not for you. This is the politicians giving a return on investment into the millions of dollars in legalized bribes that they get from the donor class. It's a scam of the highest order. and it's right in your face, and they're going to pass it with impunity. And there might not be a damn thing that we can actually do other than, what, get your pitchforks? Now, I hope it doesn't come to that. But if they pass this, it's going to be an epic disaster for the country, and it's going to have long-lasting damage. So, look, call your senator, call your representative, tell them, don't pass this bill. It is deeply unpopular. We saw it with the fight for the ACA, the repeal and replace. We saw this happen. We saw that when people are engaged, when they put a lot of pressure on their politicians, then something might actually happen. So continue to fight and, try to make it so they don't pass this tax cut. And if they do, well, then in 2018, we've got to get ready to crush them at the ballot box so we can hopefully reverse this disaster of a tax bill. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.